and welcome to SureenaSpeaks. This video is for anyone who is about to embark on their foundation training year, previously known as pre-registration year. The term pre-registration pharmacist, as of July 2021, has now been changed to trainee pharmacist, and so I'm going to try and do my best to remember to stick with the new lingo. So I put on my Instagram any advice that any newly qualified pharmacist or established pharmacist had for any trainee about to start their foundation training year, and I got a massive response. So if you're watching this and you reply to that Instagram story, thank you so much for your input, and let me know in the comments below if you recognise that that was your bit of advice. I've picked some of the key ones to discuss further in this video. For the purposes of confidentiality, I won't read out any of the individual names of who gave the advice, but there are some genuine gems in there, which I hope help you. So I'll be starting off with this one. So this individual wrote, "You're not expected to know everything straight away. Take your time and develop." It's so right. You really aren't expected to know absolutely everything. And I think that's kind of a misconception that maybe you have when you start your foundation training year, that you're expected to know absolutely everything about how everything works, about every single medicine. But don't fear, the designated supervisor used to be known as pre-reg tutor, but again, because the terminology has changed, pre-registration tutor is now known as designated supervisor. So the designated supervisor will hopefully understand and will empathise with you being in your position and being new. So exactly as this individual has said, you are not expected to know everything. Someone else has written, create your set of notes for each chapter from day one. Keep rereading these notes all year round. I'd probably actually add to that and not just say reread these notes, but actually add to those notes as well, because when you first create a set of notes, it'll either go in one of two ways. You'll either write out a whole bunch of notes, and then later on as time goes by, maybe you'll want to add a few bits and pieces and condense it down into flashcards, for example. Or it might be that you set up your notes that they're quite brief to begin with, and then you start adding more and more and making them more structured as time goes by. So it really depends on what approach works for you, but I think that's a really key other bit of advice that I'm going to add in there, that work on a revision strategy that works for you. Don't worry what everyone else is doing. I mean, it's good to get advice from different people, see how different people learn and their ways of working, but whatever revision strategy you've used to get you to your foundation training year clearly worked, so have faith in that. On to the next one. So this individual actually wrote two comments, so I'm going to read them both out. Don't let anyone convince you you're not doing your best, no matter who they are. She goes on to say, don't be afraid to give constructive feedback to a mentor or supervisor. And I think that's really key. I mean, don't get me wrong, it can be a really terrifying thought, thinking that you want to give your supervisor feedback to them, because you might think, well, actually they're the ones that should give you feedback, but it's a two-way situation. If you feel that maybe you're not getting out of your training year what you had expected, or maybe there's a particular area that you want to develop further in or have a bit more experience in, without having those conversations with your supervisor, how are they meant to know? They're not mind readers. So it is good to get that honesty, to have that clarity, and actually to set those expectations at the beginning of your training year. If you let them know and make them aware of, actually, these are the goals that you want to get out of by the end of the year, that can then really help to manage expectations, but also set out your training plan for the year as well. So next comment is, don't be scared of asking questions. It's the best way to learn and network. 100%. I truly believe that when you are learning, no question should ever be considered as a silly question. I mean, I've made a whole video on that. And it goes back to that other comment about not being expected to know everything on your day one as a trainee pharmacist. It really goes hand in hand with this question. Don't be scared of asking questions. That's what your supervisor is there for. Colleagues around you will be able to help and support you as well. I think the best tact and approach, generally speaking, is firstly try and find out the answer for yourself. Of course, this is bearing in mind that it isn't, an immediate action that calls to a patient and isn't something that you need a response there and then. If it is something that can wait, then try and find out the answer for yourself. Try and use and utilize the resources around you. Be proactive. If after that, actually, you really can't work out the answer, then do ask those questions. People much more appreciate if you try and find the answer out for yourself first before going to them. And actually, it's a better way of retaining information as well if you find out that information for yourself first. But you know, if it's a situation where a patient is in front of you and they're asking a question there and then, and you don't know how to respond, then obviously don't, you know, delay time and go and try and find the answer, etc., etc. In that moment, use your judgment. In that moment, ask your supervisor, ask your tutor for their help and support, and then afterwards have a conversation with them and try and find out from them what that best response would be or how to manage that situation next time around. Ask those questions and never feel scared to ask those questions either. So the next comment is to relax at the start, take it easy. I mean, what I would say to that one is actually maybe not take it easy necessarily, and it really goes back to how you revise. Some people need to start months in advance. Other people can get away with cramming at the end. What I would say is don't treat your foundation training year as a way of passing 2 exams, which might sound slightly absurd, but bear with me. Your foundation training year is there to help develop you into a confident and competent day 1 pharmacist. It's not just about, you know, how's your clinical and how's your calculations knowledge. It's also about how to organise your time. It's about how to manage expectations. It's about how to manage patients, those people skills as well, empathy skills, for example. All of that comes into play. And every day, even from your day 1 as a trainee pharmacist, you will be learning new things, even if it's not, you know, textbook calculations or clinical. There may be life skills that actually you're learning and developing as each day goes by. So I wouldn't necessarily say take it easy from the start. What I would say is pace yourself. Because at the beginning, it might feel like things are going quite slowly, but as the months go by, things will probably get a bit more fast paced. And that's when those skills that you'll learn from earlier on will really come into play when things start going at a faster pace. So I'd say gradual is probably a better approach. Another comment which really struck me was from this individual who's written, "Do not lose your confidence. It will be shaken and broken constantly." And I felt really sad reading that because it probably really highlights that this individual, I don't know who she is, but probably that she must have had a really challenging time to say that her confidence was constantly shaken and broken, and I hope she's okay. What I would say is that confidence takes a while to develop. It's not something you're going to just magically get overnight. It does take a while to build. And that's the point of this training year, is to help build that confidence. If at any and you know, there will be situations where your confidence may feel shaken. That's quite natural, I think, with any role. But if there's ever a point where you feel like your confidence is broken or you're feeling really stuck in a rut, then do ask for help. That's what your supervisor is for. That's what your colleagues are for. If you feel like you can't speak to any of them, Seek is there at a HR department you can talk to, or even there's a brilliant charity, Pharmacist Support, and they may be able to provide you with advice as well. There are people out there that are willing to help and are there to help you. So don't ever suffer in silence. And like I said, I can't say enough, if you ever get to a point where you feel like your confidence is fully broken, try not to allow it to get to that point where you're feeling like that. If you are struggling at any point, do ask for help. Next comment is, start writing notes from the start of the year will make it easier later on. That's kind of similar to what I was saying beforehand with the previous comment earlier, that revision really is, I feel, it's very much an individual journey, and everyone learns and revises in different ways, and you have to find that strategy that works best for you. But like I said beforehand, personally, I do think starting and writing notes from the beginning makes life easier learning on. You will be learning so much throughout this year. So if there's anything that you can do now to help make it easier for you, for the future you, then do go ahead and do it. Okay, so the next comment is allow yourself time to adjust to it and don't be hard on yourself, especially at the start. I really agree with that one. I like that one. Try not to just dispense most of the time, ask questions and take every opportunity to learn on the job. I completely agree, and if you feel like you're doing, undertaking roles and responsibilities that maybe aren't challenging you enough, do speak to your supervisor about it. Again, they're not mind readers. You need to have those open conversations with them, and if actually there's a particular task that you're doing that maybe you don't think is challenging you enough, or things are feeling a little bit monotonous and you want this a particular area that you want to have more exposure in and more experience in, then do speak to your supervisor about that. Another one was, remember you'll be able to look things up in real life practice. Don't fret. Very true. You know, it can be easy to get into that world of thinking that actually you have to know everything off the top of your head. And to an extent, there is a lot that you have to learn off the top of your head. But in real life, you will be using resources around you. Even during your training year, you'll be using resources around you to help ensure that you are giving the right advice. For example, if you are dispensing medication, why not clinically check the prescription as well? Get used to being in that mindset and in that way of thinking. Use the BNF, use SPCs, use NICE guidelines, use the patient information leaflet, use those resources around you. I do have a video on resources, and I'll include the link on one of these two corners. I don't know which side it is, but do go and check that out if you do want a list of useful resources for both clinical and calculations. Someone's just written a funny comment, which is, Teva is not the only brand that exists as per most uni dispensaries, and that's okay. Very true, and actually when you are dispensing and you're looking at the medicines that you have in the dispensary, you'll notice that actually with some brands it can be really easy to make common errors because the packaging may be really similar. For example, there may be slight differences. Very annoying that manufacturers do this. I don't know why they do this, but it's very, very frustrating, but that is something to be aware of. Someone else said, don't take feedback personally. I really like that comment because I think it is very true. It's constructive feedback, and ultimately it's there to help you to develop to being a confident and competent day one pharmacist. So do try and take on board that feedback, and if it's appropriate, you may need to act on that feedback as well, depending on what it is. But remember, feedback isn't a bad thing. You can get positive feedback and you can get constructive feedback, and it's about balance of the two. Someone wrote an interesting comment, which is, don't do your pre-reg, so they're using the old terminology, don't do your pre-reg in one place. Really interesting. I think with most people now, they probably do want to get that breadth of experience, and if you can get a placement within another sector, why not go for it? If there's somebody that you know that's maybe working in a different sector, maybe a friend of yours, for example, and you're able to do a swap and both of your supervisors agree, then maybe try and get that organised if you can. The more experiences you have, the more that you'll develop, the more that you'll grow, and the more that you'll become confident as well. And it's good to be exposed to different sectors and areas too. So yeah, good advice, that one. Do try and get some placements throughout your training year if that is a possibility. So someone else has written, trust in your uni knowledge. You've just finished 4 solid years, apply that knowledge. Very true. You probably know more than you give yourself credit for. So do trust in that knowledge that you already have, and this is now a time to build on that. So someone else has written another interesting comment. Learning content is good, but exam papers are the key. I think it's a balance. Again, to reiterate, the foundation training year isn't, you know, a tick box exercise to just pass 2 exams and that be the end of it. It is to develop you as a pharmacist and to be confident and acting as a pharmacist. And therefore you need that good foundation of knowledge. Trying to cheat your way and just do questions or just 2 exam papers is not a strategy that I would advise, but I do think it is important. It is a balance, and it is important to do those questions as well, because by doing questions, it gives you that confidence in the areas that you really know in, but it also highlights those areas that maybe you need a bit more work on. And if you do want a question bank full of hundreds of clinical questions, including over-the-counter questions, then make sure to check out Clinical Quizzical. I'll include a link in the description box below for a demonstration video, as well as a link to Clinical Quizzical. So if you want more information, do go and check that out. Another comment that actually the same individual wrote that made me laugh was also not to bother with the BNF, lol, just watch SureenaSpeaks and start past papers. That is very flattering, but actually I would not recommend that. The videos that I have are designed as summary videos to help add to your revision and to make revision easier for you. For example, if you have a pocket of time where you can't really be bothered to read something and you want to watch a video instead, or if maybe you're multitasking and you have my video on in the background, for example, I would not recommend just trying to, again, find these little cheat ways of getting through the foundation training year. You need that good solid foundation of knowledge. You need to go through the BNF yourself. You need to go through NICE guidelines. You need to feel empowered in knowing how to use different resources when you're out in the real world and you're not, you know, behind the comfort blanket that is your supervisor. So as flattering as that comment is, my videos are designed as summary videos, so please do your own foundation of knowledge as well. So another one, another individual has written, if your tutor is and then not a particularly nice word, so I'm not going to read the word out, but if your tutor is a not very nice person, let's say, switch tutors ASAP. I think this is a really important comment to highlight. Again, it goes back to having those open and honest conversations with your supervisor. If you feel that your supervisor isn't giving you the support or facilitating the environment for you to flourish, or you don't feel that they're giving you the roles and responsibilities that you think you are ready for, talk to them about it. Have those open conversations. If actually it escalates to a situation where you don't have good communication with them for one reason or another, then see, is there a trusted colleague that you could speak to? Is there a HR system? I mentioned about pharmacist support before. Maybe go to pharmacist support, get their advice as well. Don't suffer in silence with anything in life, but specifically talking about the foundation training year. Don't suffer in silence, and if you aren't getting that support from your supervisor, then do make sure to speak up about it. So someone else has written something similar to another comment, which is, you know more than you think you do. Own it, enjoy it, and work hard. Most rewarding year. I really like that one. Nice, empowering comment. Another person put, it flies by. It really does fly by. I kind of thought of my foundation training year as sections, as it were. So in my own mind, getting through the first 3 months, that was one section. Getting through the next 3 months was another section. Next 3 months, etc. And as I would tick off in my mind those first 3 months having been completed, I would look back and I'd think, that just flew. I feel like I just started, but at the same time, I feel like I've been here for ages. It really does fly, and you can make the opportunity what you want to make it by speaking up, by embracing the year, getting involved in all tasks, and never think that you're too big for your boots either. No task is too small, no task is too big. Embrace the experience, speak up, and get involved. Another individual's written, be open about your learning needs right from the start. Completely agree. He goes on to say, learn on the job as much as you can, which again reiterates what I've been saying. Keep on top of CPD and evidences for performance standards sign-offs. So performance standards used to be the thing to do. Now, as of July 2021, it's changed to learning outcomes. So on the GPHC website, if you haven't seen it, there are the interim learning outcomes. These are the outcomes that you are meant to be reaching in order to be signed off at the end of the year, and these are the learning outcomes that will be used within your progress reviews as well at 13, 26 and 39 weeks. So it's really important that you become familiar with what those learning outcomes are. So yep, keep on top of CCPD and evidences. Again, this individual's written performance standards, but it's now learning outcomes for sign-offs. Another person's written, get your routine in from the first 2 to 3 months. Thought that was quite an interesting comment. I think I'm a big advocate for routine. I love routine. And I think with something like your foundation training year, your routine can actually change up quite a bit, especially if you're doing different sectors or different placements. It might be quite hard actually to get a set routine, but if you can, then it will just help with that whole ease and transition of embracing this new place that you may be in. And the last comment that I'm going to leave you with, which was just 2 words someone's written, and that is never settle, with a full stop at the end. And I agree, never settle. I can't say it enough. Your training year really is what you make your training year to be. There are certain things that are in your control. Your attitude, how you network with people, how you collaborate with people, how much you get involved. That's all within your control. And really and truly, without sounding too cheesy, the more you put in, the more you will get out. And your training year is there to train you up to be a pharmacist. And always keep that in your mind. So I hope that you found this video useful and that there are some nuggets and advice that are in this video that you'll be able to now take on board, that you'll have ringing in your ear and take on board as you embark on your training year. It really is a year like no other. I don't think you can compare it to your undergraduate year, because that balance of working, of revising, or trying to just maintain even a social life, it can feel really overwhelming. But at the same time, it can be a really liberating year, because at the end of it, when you actually look back and realise how much you've learned and achieved, it really is quite remarkable. And to think that you can learn all that within a year really does give you a sense of feeling proud. So I hope you found this video useful, and if you did, please do give it a like, share, subscribe. Do also visit my Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, and until next time, good luck with this journey and happy revisings.